I never imagined a single sheet of A4 paper could dismantle 4 years of marriage in 10 minutes flat. It was a Saturday afternoon. Vivian said she was going for a spa day with her girlfriends. I was home alone. The study was filled with sunlight, and I decided to straighten the bookshelves while she was out. Her desk was always a bit of a mess. Documents, makeup samples, expired magazines piled into small mountains. I normally didn't touch her things, but those architecture magazines were at the bottom of a stack, and I needed to move them. That's when I saw the medical report that it was tucked inside a fashion magazine, just a corner peeking out. My first thought when I pulled it out was prenatal checkup. We'd been married 4 years, and both our families had been pushing for kids for a while. Vivian always said we should wait until her career was stable. I thought she'd finally come around. For a moment, I even felt a flicker of warmth. Then I read 3 lines, and the warmth turned to ice. The report was from Harmony Reproductive Medical Center, the city's top private clinic, specializing in IVF and pre-implantation genetic screening. The date was last Wednesday. The list of tests was long. Hormone panel, endometrial receptivity, PGD screening. I recognized the terms. 2 years ago, a friend of ours had done IVF, and Vivian had come home talking about it. She'd said it sounded like too much hassle. No way I'm putting myself through that. And yet she'd gone and done the full workup herself. Without telling me a thing, I flipped to the second page. Under clinical assessment, it read, patient healthy, uterine environment favorable, embryo transfer recommended on cycle days 14 to 16, sperm donor matched, awaiting patient confirmation to schedule procedure, sperm donor. Those 2 words hit me like a blade straight to the heart. I looked further down. At the bottom of the page was a small line. Consent, spousal signature. Ethan Sue. I'd heard the name before. Vaguely. He'd been in the finance department at a neighboring university back in college. From a business family. Good looking, but with a reputation for burning through girlfriends faster than phone cases. We hadn't kept in touch after graduation. I'd catch his name occasionally in old class group chats. Apparently he'd taken over his family's real estate firm and was doing well for himself. But that wasn't the point. The point was those 4 words. Consent, spousal signature. My wife, Vivian Zhao, had gone for a full IVF workup without telling me. And the signatory was a man I had no connection to. I stood in the study holding that piece of paper. Sunlight streamed through the window, falling on my fingers, which were shaking. I thought it was rage. Then I realized it was cold. Bone-deep cold. Seeping through my entire body. I sat down. My mind raced through the past 6 months. Vivian had been working late more and more. Company project. She said. She used to come home and talk about work. Not anymore. She bought new clothes, new bags. Her spending had clearly jumped a tier. When I asked, she'd say it was a year-end bonus or a friend's hand-me-down. She was out frequently. Dinner with Ivy. But I'd messaged Ivy twice, and her replies were brief. Haven't seen her. Busy lately. Ivy, Vivian's best friend, college roommate, the only daughter of the chairman of Skyview Real Estate, a billionaire heiress worth tens of billions. I'd met Ivy a year before I met Vivian. Freshman year, at a student club event. Back then, she had short hair, a cold face, and a no-nonsense manner. The campus's most famously unapproachable girl. Sophomore year, she'd confessed to me that it was a deep autumn night on the track field. The wind was so strong it swept dead leaves against the lampposts. I turned her down, because by then, I was already with Vivian. Vivian was warm, smiling, playful. Like a glass of tepid water. Ivy was too bright, too sharp. I was afraid that getting close to her would burn me. Over the years, we'd kept a distant, friendly orbit. She'd occasionally have dinner with Vivian and me. 3 of us at a table. She didn't talk much, but when she did, it was precise and cutting. Vivian said she was cold, but I knew she quietly helped people behind the scenes. The wedding gift she'd given us was a check for an eye-watering amount. I'd sent it back. She sent it again with a note. Don't refuse. Or you're insulting me. And now my wife was getting IVF with a sperm donor who happened to be Ivy's ex-fiancé. Ethan Sue and Ivy had broken up 3 years ago. I remembered it clearly because Vivian had spent weeks cursing him at home. That bastard. How could he do that to Ivy? She'd even dragged me out for drinks over it a few times. At the time, I thought she was being a good friend. Now, looking back, I just felt sick. I stood up, slapped the medical report on the desk, and called Vivian. It rang 6 times before she picked up. Her voice had that lazy, post-spa drawl. Hey, babe, what's up? I'm still out. Come home. It's urgent. What's so urgent? I'm with Ivy. Vivian. My voice came out calmer than I'd expected. Come home now, or I'll go to Harmony Reproductive Medical Center myself. 2 seconds of silence. Then she hung up. 40 minutes later. She walked in. She still wore that cream-colored trench coat. Her hair loose. Makeup perfect. She saw me on the sofa. The medical report spread on the coffee table. Her expression shifted through a rapid sequence. Confusion. Surprise. Then a guardedness I'd never seen before. You went through my things, she said, going on the offensive. It fell out of a magazine. I said, Vivian, who is Ethan Sue? She stood still. Her coat belt hung loose. Her expression went rigid for a moment. Then the wariness slowly shifted into something resembling defense. She walked over, reaching for the report. I held it down. I asked you, who is Ethan Sue? My voice started to fray. Ethan. She looked at me, eyes cold. This has nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with me. You're my wife. You're having another man's baby. And you say it's nothing to do with me, that we haven't signed anything yet. I'm just considering it. Pre-screening. It's not definite. Consent. Spousal signature. Vivian, tell me what that means. Did you sign it yourself? Or did Ethan? And when you signed it, did you notice that the word spouse was written right next to his name? She stepped back, her back hitting the shoe cabinet, her lips pressed tight. That warm, smiling mask shattered completely. Beneath it was a face I didn't recognize. Ethan. Her voice dropped, cool and impatient. What do you think this marriage gives me? I froze. That you're an architect. You make $150,000 a year. Sounds decent. Right. But do you know what circle my friends are in? Ivy's level aside. My department VP's wife has a full Hermes collection. My colleague's husband bought his in-laws a villa in Miami. And us. We're still paying off our mortgage. The words came faster now, like she'd rehearsed them 100 times. That I'm 32. If I don't act now, I'll have nothing. Ethan promised me. If I carry his child, he'll divorce his wife and marry me. His family's company may not be Skyview, but it's still more than we could earn in a lifetime. Then I'll be Mrs. Ethan. I won't have to watch other people buy bags and envy them anymore. When she finished, the living room was so quiet I could hear the second hand ticking on the wall clock. That I looked at her face. The face I'd known for 10 years. From college until now. Longer than I'd known any woman. I thought I knew her. Now I realized I'd only known the surface. So I heard my own voice. Dry as sandpaper. You married me for a transition, she said flatly. Ethan, I won't lie to you. I chose you because you were steady, ambitious, and good to me. But after marriage, I realized steady and ambitious don't cut it. I can't have the life I want. You can't give it to me. I stood by the coffee table, looking at her by the shoe cabinet. Cream trench, perfect makeup, a pearl necklace I'd never seen. Another gift from a friend. Probably. She looked at me the way you look at something worn out. The medical report. I said, when were you going to tell me? I wasn't. She said, by the time you found out, I'd probably already be pregnant. Then there'd be nothing you could do. You wouldn't make a pregnant woman. Enough. I cut her off. I turned and went back to the study. I opened the bottom drawer of the desk and pulled out the red folder from our wedding. Deeds, deposit slips, investment contracts. I scanned the joint account. Just over $300,000 left. Plus my own term deposit and an old apartment my parents had left me in the historic district. I opened my laptop and logged into online banking. What are you doing? Vivian followed me in, frowning, splitting the money. I didn't look up. Your salary is yours. My salary and my parents' savings. I'm transferring them out. Are you insane? That money is joint property. You want an Ethan Sue baby. You can pay for it yourself. I was halfway through the transfer when she lunged at the keyboard. I blocked her with one arm. Her nails scraped my hand. It stung. Ethan, what do you mean? If you take the money, how am I supposed to do the transfer? The surgery alone costs over $30,000. I stopped typing. I turned to look at her. Vivian, you're having another man's child, and you want to use my money to pay for it? She froze. Maybe she finally heard how absurd it sounded. I finished the transfer, closed the laptop, and stood. From the desk drawer, I pulled out a blank document and typed a few lines. Draft divorce agreement. I slid it across to her. She glanced at it, then snatched it up and tore it to shreds. The pieces fluttered down like scattered snow. Fine. Divorce. Her voice went shrill. You think I can't find someone without you? Wake up, Ethan. Do you even know Ivy's father's company is about to collapse? Ivy is drowning right now. You think she has time for her old crush? Dream on. I was about to push past her when I stopped. Ivy's father's company is about to collapse. Skyview Real Estate. What did you say? I turned back. She laughed coldly. You don't know. Do you? Skyview's cash flow dried up months ago. Ivy's father lost billions on an overseas investment. They've been suppressing the news. But everyone in the industry knows. Ethan already told me. Skyview won't last 6 months. That I stood there, rooted to the floor. Ivy. 2 weeks ago, the three of us had dinner. Ivy barely said a word the whole night. Vivian kept chattering about bags and jewelry. Ivy just gave non-committal replies. I thought she was in a bad mood. When I asked, she said work was stressful. I believed her. Vivian knew. Ethan knew. People inside Skyview knew. And me, someone who'd known Ivy for over a decade, that I knew nothing, that she'd been carrying it alone. Vivian was still standing there. That cold smirk on her face. What? You feel sorry for her? Better go cling to Ivy's leg while you can. When Skyview collapses, maybe you can scavenge the leftovers. Shut up. I grabbed my phone and keys and walked out without looking back. Behind me, I heard something smash against the wall, followed by her sobs. I didn't know what she was crying about. She'd smashed everything herself. Who was she crying for? I got in my car, hands on the wheel, my head buzzing. My phone lit up. A message from Ivy. Ethan, free tomorrow afternoon. I want to talk. There are things you should know. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back, okay. The next afternoon at 2 p.m., I arrived at the tea house Ivy had chosen, tucked in a deep alley in the old district. Wooden doors, bamboo blinds. Inside, the air was steeped in clean tea fragrance. Ivy sat by the window in a plain knit top, hair loose, no makeup. She raised a hand when she saw me, gesturing for me to sit. 2 cups of tea were already poured. You saw it, she said without preamble. I blinked. Saw what? The medical report. She took a sip, her gaze steady on me. Harmony Reproductive Medical Center. The director is my aunt. Vivian thought she was keeping it from me, but my aunt gives me a weekly update. Not patient confidentiality violations. But the combination of sperm donor Ethan Sue was something my aunt felt I should know. I tightened my grip on the teacup. How long have you known? 2 weeks. She set the cup down. Ethan and I broke up 3 years ago. You probably remember. He's never serious about women. Vivian thinks she can leverage a pregnancy. But Ethan will never marry anyone. He thinks it's too much trouble. Then why didn't you tell me? She looked at me, then a look with something complicated in it. Hesitation, and a softness she hadn't touched in a long time. She turned away, looking at the locust tree branches outside. I was afraid you couldn't take it. She said, Ethan, I know how good you were to her. You gave up a chance to study abroad. You saved up to buy her bags. You remembered every anniversary. If I was the one telling you, you'd feel like the whole world was betraying you. I was quiet for a long time. So why tell me now? Because my aunt said the transfer is scheduled for next week. She met my eyes again. If you didn't know, and she had the baby, you'd be stuck as the sugar daddy. You don't deserve that. I took a long gulp of tea. It burned all the way down. I looked at Ivy in the afternoon light. Barefaced, fine red veins in her eyes. Like she hadn't slept well in days. The world saw her as the aloof heiress, the iron lady of a billion-dollar empire. But sitting here was just a woman who'd been hurt by her ex, and now watched her friend betray her. She'd known everything, and she'd kept it in until she thought I needed to hear it. Ivy, my voice came out rough. Your father's company. What's really going on? Her expression flickered. Vivian told you. She laughed, that same tired, self-deprecating smile. She told you in a fight, didn't she? She looked down, running a finger along the rim of her teacup. Then she looked up at me. Yes. Skyview is in serious trouble. My father lost hundreds of millions on an overseas investment. We've had 3 cash flow lines cut. We're trying to find a way out. But, she paused. It's hard to say if we'll make it. I looked at her. Sunlight came through the bamboo slats, dappling her face. Her lashes were lowered. Her lips pressed together. Her jaw held a stubborn line. She and Vivian were the same aged. But Vivian was scheming to trade a child for money, while Ivy was carrying the collapse of a billion-dollar company alone. Ivy, I said, what do you need? She looked up, surprised that I asked what you need. People, resources, money, anything. Just tell me. She opened her mouth like she was about to say something polite, something dismissive, but instead she looked at me and said, quietly, you don't owe me anything. I know. I said, but I want to help. The wind outside stirred the locust branches. Shadows shifted on the table. Ivy said nothing, but the fingers of her hand, resting on the table, curled slightly. I saw it. After the tea house, I sat in my car for a long time. The afternoon sun slanted across the windshield, bleaching the dashboard numbers white. My head churned with what Ivy had said, how she'd described Ethan Sue's motives with such flat detachment. I'd known her long enough to understand that the flatter her voice, the deeper something was buried. 3 years ago, her breakup with Ethan had been loud. Rumors flew that he'd cheated. Her family disapproved. But no one knew the real reason. Ivy had never explained herself to anyone. Not even Vivian. My stomach churned again. I started the car. Didn't go home. Just drove aimlessly through the city. At dusk, I passed the hot pot place we used to go to. There was a line out the door. Through the window, I could see the steam and warmth inside. In our first year of marriage, Vivian and I had come here often. She'd take my tripe from the clear broth and grin, saying I was the easiest person to pick on. Back then, her smile was beautiful. Now I wondered if she'd been serious when she said easy to pick on. I got home after dark. Vivian was out. The lights were off. Her heels were missing from the entryway. I turned on the light. A shredded paper still scattered across the floor from the divorce draft she'd torn up. I crouched and picked up the pieces, one by one, and dropped them in the trash. Then I went to the study. I opened my laptop and started organizing 4 years of financial records. Salary statements, investment accounts, property records, every joint account transaction. I needed to have everything clear before I drafted a real divorce agreement. Around midnight, I heard the lock turn. Vivian's steps were lighter than usual. Soft slippers. She paused at the study door, probably seeing my light and silhouette. You're still up. Her voice was softer than it had been all day, almost tentative. I didn't turn around. She stood there for a moment, then came over and leaned against the doorframe. I caught a glimpse of her in pajamas, makeup off, hair damp. Like she'd showered elsewhere. Ethan, can we talk? I stopped typing and turned my chair to face her. About what? She walked in and sat across from me, hands folded in her lap, posture like she was at a job interview. She took a deep breath, her words neatly arranged. I don't want a divorce. I admit. Going for those tests, contacting Ethan. That was a mistake. But think about it. Isn't our marriage itself broken? You work till 9 every night. Weekends you're drawing plans. When was the last time we really talked? I watched her. I was just lonely. Her eyes reddened. When Ethan pursued me, he was so attentive. He took me shopping, gave me gifts, traveled with me. I was foolish. I thought anyone who treated me well was enough. But I've realized that I don't love him. I love you. When she finished, she reached for my hand. I pulled back. Vivian, I said, calmer than I felt. Those words that you're saying them to yourself, not to me. Her hand froze in midair. If you're really sorry, I said, looking at her, then call Ethan right now. Tell him it's over. You have his number saved as Mr. Ethan, don't you? Call him. Her expression shifted. The redness faded. Her lips tightened. Call him. I repeated, pushing my phone toward her. She didn't move. 10 seconds of silence. Then she stood, looking down at me. Her voice back to that cold edge. Fine. You want the truth. Ethan said he'd finalize his divorce as soon as I get him Skyview's bid data. What I do with my life that you don't get to say. I leaned back in my chair. One more thing. She added. Ethan got all of Skyview's internal files from Ivy's old laptop. The idiot never changed her password after they broke up. He copied everything. The real financials. Ivy's drowning right now. She can't even save herself. You think she'll save you? She turned and went to the bedroom. The door clicked shut. I sat in the study, staring at the closed door. Then I looked down at my hand. The same hand that had put a ring on her finger 4 years ago. I'd said I'll protect you through any storm. She'd smiled and said you talk too sweet. And now I was sitting here, hearing you don't get a say. I picked up my phone and messaged Ivy. What you told me today. I asked there more, after a few minutes. Why the sudden question? Did you change your laptop password after the breakup? Almost half a minute passed. Then Ivy called directly. What do you mean? Her voice was taut. Are you talking about Ethan? Vivian said he copied files from your old computer, Skyview financial data. She said you never changed your password. A low curse on her end. I didn't quite catch it. Then, you're right. I didn't. I thought we could part amicably. I never imagined he would. I said, he's making a married woman carry his child. Copying files is nothing compared to that. A long silence. When Ivy spoke again, her voice was back to that cool, detached tone. Thank you for telling me. I'll handle it. How? She paused. I don't know yet. Those files cover 3 core projects. Cost assessments, financing structures. If Ethan has them, he could short Skyview strategically. Why he hasn't moved yet? Maybe because he hasn't found the most critical one. Which one? The partnership reserve price for the South lot. Ivy said. I stored it in an encrypted partition on that old laptop. The password was set by him. I never changed it. If he cracks it, and that reserve price leaks, the partner will lowball us before signing. Skyview loses at least 30 million. 30 million's not fatal. I said, not on its own, but with our current cash flow tight. Every million lost could be the last straw. Does he have that partition password that I don't know? She sounded tired. It was years ago. I don't remember if he ever saw it that I held the phone. Thinking fast. Vivian said Ethan promised to marry her if she got Skyview's bid data. That means either he hasn't cracked the partition yet, or he has. But he needs Vivian's internal confirmation. Ivy, can you remotely change the old laptop password now? The laptop is locked in my old office cabinet at Skyview Tower. I'll go first thing tomorrow. Don't wait. I looked at the clock. 12:40 a.m. Can you go now? She hesitated. You're coming with me. I'll drive. After hanging up, I grabbed my keys. Passing the bedroom. Silent inside. Vivian asleep or not. I didn't stop. I changed shoes and left. The city streets at midnight were empty as rivers. When I pulled up to Skyview Tower, Ivy was already standing at the entrance in a black trench coat. She got in quickly. The night guard knows me, she said. I'll handle it. We entered. The office tower was dark except for emergency lights and the elevator hum. Ivy led me to the 16th floor. Her old office was mostly cleared out, and old steel cabinets stood in the corner. She crouched to find the key, her fingers trembling. Relax, I said. He's not coming tonight. She didn't answer. She swung the cabinet open. Inside lay a dusty old laptop. She pulled it out and powered it on. The login screen still showed her old account. She entered the password, opened the encrypted partition, and paused at the new password prompt. Change it, I said. She typed in a new one, confirmed it. Then she paused, reopened the partition, and renamed every file, encrypting them with a new layer of protection. She closed the laptop and exhaled. We sat on the floor, backs against the cabinet. Outside the window, the city glittered like scattered diamonds on black velvet. Ivy looked at me and laughed softly. You must think I'm an idiot. Not changing my password after the breakup. Not an idiot, I said. You just didn't guard against it. You thought someone you trusted wouldn't stab you. Her smile faded. She looked down at her hands and said quietly, when you turned me down back then to oh, you know how I felt. I looked at her. I felt like I was the problem, she said, her voice light, almost to herself. Too cold, too tough, can't flirt, can't play sweet. So you chose her. I accepted it. But I always wondered that if I'd been softer, warmer, would you have looked at me differently? She lifted her head and met my eyes. No resentment, no hurt, just a faint trace left by time. Ivy, I said, back then, it wasn't you. Then who was it? I thought for a moment. It was me. She looked at me. You were too bright, I said, like a searchlight. I was just a regular architecture student. Standing next to you, I'd feel like I couldn't hide anything. That scared me. And I paused. She felt safe, because I didn't need to see through her, and she didn't need to see through me. Ivy listened quietly. Then she stood, brushed off her coat, and reached a hand down to pull me up. Let's go, she said. It's 2 a.m. I'll buy you a late-night snack. We found a 24-hour noodle shop on the street. She picked all the cilantro out of her bowl and piled it on the side. I reached over and took it. She blinked, then looked down and kept eating. I didn't catch the corner of her mouth, but it looked like she was smiling. When I drove her home, she got out at her gate. She turned and said, Ethan, if something's up, don't keep it from me. If you want to help me, just tell me. I nodded. She turned and walked in, the streetlight stretching her shadow. I watched her until she disappeared. I looked at my phone. Vivian had messaged an hour ago. Where did you go at midnight? To see Ivy. Do you have no shame? She's about to go bankrupt. And you're rushing to lick her boots. I didn't reply. I opened my contacts and saw Ivy had just posted on social media. For words, thanks for the late-night snack. The photo showed her bowl of soup with half the broth left, and the edge of my wrist on the table. I pocketed the phone and drove home. When I got home, it was almost 3 a.m. The living room light was on. Vivian sat on the sofa, eyes red. Like she'd been crying. On the coffee table were 2 sheets of paper. A handwritten pledge. I, Vivian Zhao, promised to have no further contact with Ethan Su. I will return to my family and work to rebuild my marriage with Ethan. She slid it toward me, her voice hoarse. Ethan, give me one more chance. I looked at the paper for 3 seconds, then at her. She sat there, completely undone. Hair loose, eyes swollen. She looked truly pathetic, but I felt nothing, like water that had gone completely cold, and no matter what you poured into it, it wouldn't warm up. Go to bed, I said, and walked past her to the study. I didn't look at that pledge a second time. As I closed the door, I heard a small, Soft sob from the living room. I didn't turn back. I woke early the next morning. Neck stiff from sleeping on the study sofa. I walked to the kitchen for water and saw the pledge was gone from the coffee table. The trash bin had a few extra tissues. I poured water and stood by the window drinking it. My phone lit up. Ivy. I thought about it more last night. Ethan's encrypted partition issue isn't fully resolved. If he has other backups, or if he remembers my old password and tries it elsewhere, I want to change all internal Skyview system passwords that hold core data. I replied. Need help? She answered immediately. Free today? Come to Skyview. I don't trust the legal or IT teams with this. I want you there as backup. I looked at that message. Backup was just a nice way of saying I need you there. Okay. 2 p.m. I set the phone down. Sunlight came through the curtain and painted a bright line across the kitchen tile. I stood on that line for a moment, thinking about a scene from college, same season. Autumn. The track field carpeted with fallen leaves. Wind so strong it snatched your voice away. Ivy stood under the streetlight and said, Ethan, I like you. Her short hair was wild in the wind. She looked at me, lips pressed together. With that I'm all an expression. I said no. Later, she got together with Ethan. Engaged. Broken up. Like a shooting star. Now, full circle. She was sitting in front of me at her lowest, reaching out a hand and saying, I need you. I broke the line of light with my foot, set down the glass, went to the study, and started preparing for the afternoon. I in the bedroom. Vivian was still asleep. She probably didn't know that at 2 p.m., her about-to-go bankrupt best friend was asking her husband to come keep watch. Some fish tanks break. The fish swim away. And they don't come back. At 2 p.m. I arrived at Skyview Tower. Ivy was waiting in the lobby, in a charcoal suit, hair pinned, small pearl studs in her ears. She looked every bit the Iron Lady again. But up close. The dark circles under her eyes were worse. Let's go. 19th floor. She swiped her key card and led me up. The 19th floor housed Skyview's strategic investment department. In a small conference room, 3 laptops and a stack of folders waited on the long table. Ivy sat and pushed a checklist across without preamble. 7 systems with core data, cost estimates, project financing, partner records, internal audit, and the South Lot database. She tapped one line. The South Lot database password was linked to the encrypted partition on my old computer, which I changed last night. But I don't know if Ethan made a backup. Even if he did, it's fine. I opened the folder. If he only copied encrypted files without the key, they're just gibberish. The risk is if he separated the key and hid it elsewhere. She frowned. He had access to my phone backups that they auto-synced. If he had the key stored in the phone, we'd need to redo all the linkages to Oh, you have an IT person here. She pressed the intercom. Have Mark come to conference room. 19.5 minutes later. A young man in black-rimmed glasses knocked. Ivy introduced him as Skyview's IT director that trusted for 3 years. I summarized our concerns. He didn't ask many questions. Give me 48 hours. He said, I'll regenerate all system layer keys and invalidate the old ones. Force clear associated backups. Will that be in time? I asked. He looked at me. Depends when Ethan moves. If he starts tonight, he won't. Ivy said, Ethan's cautious. Before acting, he'll double-check from an internal source. Vivian hasn't given him anything yet. Even if he cracks the files, they're outdated. He wants current. Official confirmation. I listened to Ivy analyze Ethan. She was clinical. Like assessing a market competitor. 3 years ago, they'd been intimate. Now she was watching every move he made. Mark left. The conference room went quiet. Ivy leaned back, closed her eyes, took a breath, then opened them and smiled at me. Just keep an eye on the systems. I'll handle the rest. What about your father? I asked. Her smile faded. Instead of answering, she pulled a financial report from the folder and handed it to me. I scanned it. A simplified Skyview cash flow statement for the past year. The first pages looked normal. By the third page, red ink took over. Overdue bank acceptances, loan extensions, accounts payable freeze. I'd been in architecture long enough to know what those red marks meant. How much did your father lose on that overseas investment? On paper, 260 million, she said. That triggered banks to freeze almost 600 million in credit lines. Skyview currently has less than 20 million in liquid cash. Within 3 months, we have 120 million in debt maturing. $100 million gap. 1,000 company empire, brought to its knees in months. The cruelty of high-leverage real estate. The bigger you are, the louder the crash. I held the report. Vivian's words echoed. Ivy's drowning. She was right. But Ivy sat here telling me this with a voice as steady as a weather report. Does your father know? I asked yes. But his health is bad. High blood pressure. The doctor said rest. I don't want him worrying more. I'll carry it. Can you? She looked up at me. Afternoon light fell across her face, illuminating the same tense jawline from yesterday. I have to. She said. Skyview was founded by my grandfather. My father held it for 30 years. I won't let it end with me. She sounded steady. Her face was steady, but I saw the dark circles, the way she pressed her lips, the way her fingers curled slightly on the table. Ivy. I said. I told you that if you need something, say it. She looked at me, started to say something polite, then stopped. She stood and walked to the window, back to me, looking down at the traffic. After a moment, her voice drifted back. My father has 3 projects that are either stalled or semi-stalled. They're good projects. Cash got pulled. If we could restart them, we'd free up $50 million in cash flow to get through the first 3 months. But no one wants to touch them. Everyone knows Skyview is in deep water. I stood and walked to her side at the window. Down below, among the sprawling city, 3 unfinished concrete frames stood out like unerupted teeth. Which ones? I asked. She pointed at 3 spots on the glass. I recognized the silhouette of one. A design I'd seen at an industry conference last year. Large footprint. Prime location. It was meant to be Skyview's flagship project. The design team. I asked that IT was a partnership with a Singapore firm, but they pulled out when funds froze. The construction team has half the drawings and can't proceed. Let me see the drawings. She turned. Surprised. I'm an architect. Design optimization. Cost control. Construction coordination. I've been doing it for 10 years. If you trust me, let me look at the drawings and budgets for all 3. I'll tell you what can be done, what it takes, and how much it'll cost. Ivy looked at me. Several seconds passed. Light fell on her face, softening something behind the iron mask. Ethan. Her voice was quiet. Why are you helping me? She'd asked this before. At the tea house. I hadn't given her a real answer. Now she stood beside me, pointing at half-finished buildings. Standing at the edge of a cliff. Because you helped me. I said. That's all. And then I paused. Also because of the way she'd run back to the office at midnight to change her password. Because of the way she'd picked cilantro out of her noodles. Because of that social media post last night that happened to catch the edge of my wrist in the photo. But I couldn't say all that. Some things I hadn't fully understood myself, that saying them now would be reckless. Also, I think you're having a rough time. Ivy blinked. Then she laughed out a real, unguarded laugh. Her shoulders shaking. Her eyes crinkling. Ethan. Your deadpan humor hasn't changed in 10 years. It's not humor. You had 2 eggs in your noodle soup last night. 4 people add extra eggs. The owner gave me 1 because I'm good looking. He gave me 0 because you're not. I leaned against the window frame and smiled too. When the laughter settled, Ivy looked at me. Serious again. I'll have someone compile the drawings and budgets for you. Send them tonight. Give me 3 days. No. I'll look tonight. She nodded. Then she turned and looked back at the 3 unfinished buildings. In the afternoon light, her profile seemed softer than the sharp-edged Ivy I'd known. Ethan. She said. If you really do revive these 3 projects, I'll give you a cut no need. Then what do you want? I thought for a moment. I'll tell you when it's done. She looked at me, but didn't push. That evening, I left Skyview with a USB drive containing all 3 projects' drawings, budgets, and permits. When I got home, Vivian was out. A note on the table. Staying at my sister's for a few days. Let's both cool off. I crumpled it and tossed it. That night, I sat in the study until 3 a.m. reviewing the files. 3 projects. 3 different problems. The first needed a facade system. The original firm had fled. The second had structural inefficiencies. Outdated rebar specs. $800,000 in cost bloat. The third was stuck on zoning. Needed city planning approval. All solvable. I knew a team for the facade. I could recalculate the structural savings myself. And for zoning, I had a contact at the planning department. I compiled a 12-page report with solution timelines and budgets, and sent it to Ivy at 3:17 a.m. I figured she'd see it in the morning. She replied within 3 minutes. You're still up. I typed. So are you. Couldn't sleep. Skimmed your report. You're taking all 3. I replied. Yes, but promise me something. What? Starting tomorrow. You're in bed by midnight. Your dark circles are deeper than my blueprints. A pause. Then she sent a voice message. I played it. Her voice carried a suppressed laugh. Ethan. You're so bossy. Lunch tomorrow at Skyview. I'll gather the project teams. You present the plan. Okay. I put down the phone and leaned back. Through the window, The city at 3 a.m. lay quiet. The overpass lights like an orange river. I thought of Vivian, probably at her sister's. Complaining about me. Probably waiting for me to come crawling back. Probably thinking her pledge and tears would soften me. She didn't know that when she said I couldn't give her the life she wanted, I'd already realized she was right. What she wanted that I couldn't give, but what Ivy wanted that I could. And I was giving it. That thought didn't feel like revenge. It felt like clarity. The next afternoon, I presented the 12-page plan to a room of 10 project staff. When I finished, a senior engineer started clapping, and the others followed. Ivy sat at the head of the table, arms crossed, a small smile at the corner of her mouth. 3 months. She said afterward, "You really think you can revive all 3 in 3 months? You don't believe me. I believe you." She stood and extended her hand. I shook it. "For 3 months. We're partners." Her palm was warm. When it touched mine, a thought flickered. If I'd chosen differently under that streetlight 10 years ago, where would we be now? But the thought passed. The past was past. She let go, smiled, and turned to gather the project teams. I looked at my palm. Her warmth still lingered. Vivian had said Ivy was drowning. But she was wrong about one thing. When Ivy was drowning, she didn't hide. She laid everything on the table and told me she needed help. And I reached out. This wasn't calculation. This was 2 adults, after their lives had shattered, picking up the pieces they could use to build something new. I left the conference room. My phone lit up. "Vivian, Ethan, I've decided. I'm going ahead with the embryo transfer. Next week. You don't need to be involved." I looked at the message for 2 seconds. Then I locked the screen. Outside, the afternoon sun was bright. The 3 unfinished buildings stood quietly in the distance. I messaged Ivy. "Free tonight. I want to meet the facade team." She replied, "Yes, I'll pick you up at 6." I smiled and stepped into the elevator. In the mirrored door, I saw my reflection. Less strained than before. 3 months of work ahead. But this time, I wasn't alone. The days that followed were relentless. I spent my days at my own firm wrapping up ongoing projects. My partner, Mark, stared at me when I said I was helping Skyview. "Ethan, are you out of your mind? You know what people are saying? Skyview won't last the year. And you're jumping in." I know. I handed him the current project files. "You handle these for the next 3 months. Take an extra 10% of profits." He opened his mouth to argue, saw my expression, and just sighed. "Fine, but don't get dragged down with her." I didn't answer. I walked out at AT6. Ivy's car was waiting outside my office. A silver Volvo, understated for a billionaire heir. She lowered the window and waved me in. We drove to the south lot. The site was worse than I'd imagined. 3 frames had gone up, but the scaffolding was rusted. Weeds knee-high. The facade team's 2 reps waited outside the site office. When they saw Ivy, their expressions weren't respectful or dismissive, just numb. She didn't waste words. She spread my drawings on the table. "This is my architect, Ethan. He's designed a new facade plan. 40 days shorter, 15% cheaper." The 2 reps leaned in. At first their eyes wandered. Then they focused. One of them looked at me. "You calculated the load simulations yourself." 3 runs. I said, "High-strength steel instead of standard. Thinner but stronger. Only catch. Your fabrication precision needs to be tighter. Can you do it?" They exchanged a look. "Yeah, we can." Ivy stood back, hands in her pockets. After they left, she turned to me with a new expression. Like she was seeing me differently. "You even knew their fabrication capability." I did my homework. I said, "Your PM told me their equipment was upgraded 3 years ago. I designed around that. If they couldn't handle it, I'd have a backup." She looked at me for a few seconds. Then, "Ethan, you're too serious when you work. Can't afford not to be. Not with your noodle budget." She laughed and looked at the site. The setting sun cast long shadows across the concrete frames. "This one," she said, pointing at the tallest center building, "was my father's first big project. I'd just come back from abroad. He thought I could handle it, so he gave it to me. I was on site every day. Got tan like a coal miner. Now you're back. It's harder now." She lowered her hand. Then, Dad was behind me. "Now, I have to hold the sky up myself. And make sure he doesn't see it falling." I didn't answer. Nothing I could say would be enough. Over the next weeks, I was at Skyview almost every day. Meetings, site runs, contractor calls. At night, I did design optimizations and cost models. Vivian never came back, but her things stayed. Clothes, makeup, toiletries. I still smelled her floral perfume whenever I passed the bedroom. A fading trail. One night, I was in the study when the door lock clicked. Vivian came in with 2 shopping bags that she'd been at the mall. She stood in the living room, looking around. Then at me. You still live here? She asked. It's my apartment. She dropped the bags on the sofa, walked into the bedroom, and came out with a suitcase. She started packing. The transfer is next Saturday. I'm moving to Ethan's place for recovery. Her tone was flat, like she was announcing a grocery run. I leaned against the study doorframe, watching her go back and forth. Ethan. She stopped. Aren't you going to say anything about what my wife is going to have another man's baby? And you feel nothing. I looked at her. Under the living room light. Her coat was cream. Her skin pale. Her eyes held a challenge. She wanted a reaction. Anger. Pleading. Even despair. Anything to prove I still cared. Vivian. I've drafted a divorce agreement. It's in the study drawer. Sign it whenever you want. Her composure cracked. Something flickered beneath. Confusion. Irritation. She opened her mouth. Then said, just you wait. Ivy's project will be dead in 3 months. You'll go down with her. She walked out with her suitcase. The door clicked shut. I returned to the study. The lines on the blueprint were clear in the light. I drew a few more strokes, then stopped at 1 a.m. I sent Ivy an updated budget. She didn't reply. Hopefully she'd finally gone to sleep. I stepped onto the balcony. My phone buzzed. A voice message from Ivy. I played it. Her voice was drowsy. Half asleep. Ethan. I just dreamed about the project. The curve of that exterior wall. Your design for it was really beautiful. The last few words were slurred, but she'd fallen back asleep. I stood on the balcony. The night wind carried the dry autumn cool. I looked at that 14-second voice message and saved it. 2 months in. Progress accelerated. The facade was installed. The structural optimization saved $700,000. The zoning issue moved forward through a contact at the planning department. Ivy said 3 months. But at this pace, the first cash would arrive in just over 2.1 night. We were in the 19th floor office, reviewing final submission documents. When I looked up, Ivy had fallen asleep on the desk, her laptop still glowing. Her cheek was on her arm, lashes long, breathing even. I stood, took off my jacket, and draped it over her. She stirred, but didn't wake. I walked to the window. Down below, the 3 sites had scattered lights. The night crew still working. Welding arcs flickered like fireflies. My phone lit up. Vivian's message. 3 words. Transfer completed. I stared at them for a few seconds, then locked the screen. I looked back at Ivy, curled in the chair, my jacket over her. A quiet, deep sleep she hadn't had in a long time. The next morning, she woke and found the jacket. She sat up, rubbed her neck, saw me on the sofa, eyes closed. Did you not go home? She asked softly. Finished at almost 4. Didn't want to drive? She folded the jacket and stood, stretching. Her hair was messy, sleep lines on her face. Ethan, she said, were you on the balcony last night? How did you know I smelled smoke? You didn't used to smoke. I remembered I'd found half a pack in my desk from who knows when. Out on the balcony, watching the welding sparks. My mind had kept circling back to those 3 words from Vivian. The cigarette didn't help, but it settled the thought. Don't smoke again. Ivy said. Yet we packed up and went down for dumpling soup. She was sipping her broth when I asked. Any activity on the encrypted partition? She set the spoon down. Mark installed a trace script. If anyone tries to access the backup with the old key, it logs the IP and device. Last weekend, there was one failed attempt. IP traced to a coffee shop near Ethan's office. He hasn't given up. He won't. Ivy paused, but the attempt failed. All keys are changed. Now he's waiting for another channel. Vivian. She glanced at me. She posted a photo from the hospital. Caption, New Beginnings. I don't know what she meant, but my source confirmed she was at Harmony yesterday. My hand on the spoon paused. Then I kept eating. Ethan. Ivy's voice lowered. Are you okay? Fine. She told me herself. Transfer's done. Ivy was quiet. Then she went back to her soup. The noise and steam of the shop wrapped around us like a separate world. On our way out, she tugged my sleeve. I turned. She stood under the shop light, looking up at me. Ethan. When these 3 projects are done and Skyview has recovered, I have something to tell you. What did I tell you then? She turned and walked toward the parking lot, waving behind her. Get some sleep. Your eyes are bloodshot. I stood there, watching her go. The morning wind carried the scent of a waking city. Her shadow stretched long in the early light. I had a feeling that when she finally told me, something would change for good. And that day wasn't far off. By the middle of the 2nd month. The first project delivered. The facade was finished. Passed inspection. The first payment $0.3 million hit Skyview's account 3 days later. Ivy called me that afternoon, her voice lighter than I'd ever heard it. Ethan. Guess how much $0.3 million? Wait, that you knew. I scheduled it. I do the math. She laughed on the other end. Fine. You win. I'll buy you dinner tonight. That we went to a simple Cantonese place. Ivy ordered a full table that she ate faster than usual, a smile lingering at her lips. Seeing her like that, I felt something catch in my chest. These past weeks, she'd been a drawn bowstring. Now it had loosened. Just a little point, 2 more projects. I said, at this pace, they'll both finish by next month. Ivy put her chopsticks down. Ethan, you know what I was doing 2 months ago when my aunt called about Vivian's Harmony visit? I sat in my office for half an hour and stared at the wall. I thought maybe I'm just not meant to have anyone in my life. My fiancée lied to me. My best friend betrayed me. Even my dad's company was falling apart. She tilted her head. But now, it doesn't feel so bad that I lifted my teacup to her. She clinked hers against mine. A soft, barely audible sound amid the restaurant noise. But I remembered it. After dinner, Ivy drove me home. At my gate, she pulled a printout from the glove compartment. Look at this. It was a screenshot of Vivian's social media. A white wedding dress. Back view. A bridal shop. Caption, the best arrangement. Thankful for you. Her wedding? I asked. Posted this afternoon. Underneath, someone asked if she was getting married. She replied with a shy emoji. I stared at the silhouette I knew so well. Those shoulders. That back. For years ago, she'd stood in front of me in white and said, Ethan, you have to be good to me forever. Now she was building a new forever with someone else. I handed the phone back. Nothing. Ivy took it. Hesitated. One more thing. I heard Ethan's planning a wedding. 2 weeks from now. At the Regency Hotel. Invitations have gone out. Marrying her. Looks like it. But I'm not sure he's serious. He always has an angle. I leaned back in the passenger seat. Outside, the streetlights cast orange pools on the empty road. 2 weeks from now. I said, the second project should be done by then. Are you going? If she invites me, I'll go. She turned to look at me, her face half lit by the street lamp. She seemed about to say something, then just nodded. Okay, then I'm going. 2.3 days later, Vivian's electronic invitation arrived. I was on site, discussing facade punch list items, when my phone buzzed. I took off my safety gloves and opened an elegant navy digital invite. Vivian Zhao, Ethan Su. Invite you to their wedding ceremony, Regency Hotel. Saturday, 3 p.m. at the bottom. A personal note. Ethan. I've saved you a seat. Front row. Don't miss it. I stared at those words. Don't miss it. I could picture her face as she typed them. She wanted me there. She wanted me to see her exchange vows with someone else. Soak in everyone's blessings. She wanted me to hurt, to regret, to prove that she'd made the right choice. And I'd been left behind. I pocketed the phone, picked up my helmet, and walked back to the site. 2 steps in, I stopped and pulled it out again. I forwarded the invite to Ivy. She replied instantly. I saw it. Are you going? Yes. Where's something nice? I smiled. Typed. How nice? She replied. Anything but that gray work jacket. On the wedding day, I wore a tailored charcoal suit I'd bought 3 years ago. For an industry awards dinner. Vivian had picked it out. She'd said gray made me look distinguished, and I tried on several before settling on it. It had hung in my closet ever since. When I put it on, the shoulders fit perfectly. My phone buzzed. Ivy. I'm at your gate. I went down. Ivy stood by her car in a black suit dress. Hair loose. Platinum hoops at her ears. Light makeup. Just a touch of lipstick. Even so, when she stood by the car, passers-by turned to look. She looked me up and down. Decent. You pass? You too. Let's go. The Regency Ballroom was an ocean of white and champagne. Flowers. Ribbons. Crystal chandeliers. A red-carpeted aisle led to a stage. A massive wedding photo at the entrance showed Vivian smiling, Ethan's arm around her waist. Ivy stood beside me, following my gaze. See something? Nothing. At the reception desk. The attendant paused when she saw my name. I ignored it and took my seat card. Front row. Center. Directly facing the stage. Vivian had been thorough. Ivy was placed 3rd row. Off to the side. When I sat down, I gave her a small nod. She raised an eyebrow in reply. The music swelled. The ceremony began. Vivian appeared at the entrance, arm in arm with her father. She was stunning. A mermaid-cut gown, elaborate updo, earrings that flashed in the spotlight. Her smile was flawless as she walked toward the stage. As she passed the front row, her eyes found me. Her lips curved into a subtle smile. A reminder that she'd moved on. Ethan stood on stage. White suit, hair perfectly styled. As the vows began, Ivy stood up. She walked unhurriedly through the space between rows and stopped beside me. She turned slightly and extended her hand. I looked at her. She said nothing. But her eyes held a light we both understood. I stood. I took her hand. Together, we walked toward the stage. The room went silent. Hundreds of eyes followed us. Cameras lifted. Vivian's smile froze. Ethan's expression flickered. I stopped 2 meters from the stage and released Ivy's hand. From my inner pocket, I pulled out a manila envelope containing a notarized report on the South Lot bid data. Something Mark and I had prepped in advance. I opened the envelope and held it up toward the stage. Mr. Ethan, I said, my voice projecting clearly through the microphone. Before you exchange rings, I have something to clarify for all the guests. Ethan's composure cracked. His eyes locked on the document in my hand. The internal bid price you used to acquire Skyview's South Lot was fake data I planted. You've already signed the acquisition letter of intent, per the penalty clause in the appendix. If Skyview cannot close at that price, you owe a penalty of 30% of the intent amount. In writing, signed by you. Ethan's head whipped toward his team. His staff scrambled. Faces paled. You're lying, he said, his voice a shade too high. The notarized document is here. I raised the envelope. Your signature, verified by legal experts. Mr. Ethan, the perfect scheme you spent 3 months building now hinges on one thing. The penalty you signed yourself. Vivian's smile had shattered. She stared at me, lips trembling, as if asking, how did you know? Ivy stepped past me, onto the stage, in front of Vivian. Her heels clicked on the marble. Vivian, she said, looking down at her. The news about Skyview's cash flow crisis. I leaked it myself. You took files from my old computer and sent them to Ethan. You thought it was your ticket to a better life. But did you ever think I wouldn't make the same mistake twice? The room erupted. Cameras flashed. People stood. Some already on their phones. Ethan's parents were ashen in the front row. Vivian's relatives looked confused. Vivian stepped back, her gown dragging a fold across the stage. Her face had lost all color. She looked at Ethan. You said you didn't know? You told me it was a normal acquisition. Ethan. Say something. Ethan avoided her eyes. He stared at the vow card in his hand, crushing it. Then he spoke, low but audible. She came to me. Everything was her idea. I thought it was legitimate. The words struck Vivian like a knife. A choked sound escaped her. She reached for him. He stepped back. She stumbled and fell to one knee on the stage. I stood at the foot of the stage, watching her in white, on her knees. Her hair had come loose. Her earrings swung. She looked up. Past Ethan, past Ivy, past the cameras. And found my face. Hate, disbelief, and something almost like begging. For me to come help her up. The way I always used to. I didn't move. Ivy stepped back. Beside me. She reached for my arm. Her palm was warm against my sleeve. Vivian was helped up by someone, but her control was gone. She pointed at Ivy. You took my man. She screamed. You wanted him all along. You pretended to be my friend. Now you've finally won. Ivy looked at her calmly. When Vivian's voice broke and she stood trembling, Ivy said softly, Vivian, 10 years ago, he chose you. Today you pushed him away yourself. Security arrived. Ethan's people were already negotiating with hotel staff. Ivy took my arm, and we walked out. Behind us, music had stopped. The lights still blazed. Voices rose and fell like waves. We stepped outside. The autumn wind was cool. Ivy let go of my arm and turned to face me. Her iron composure now cracked. Rare vulnerability in her eyes. Was that all? She asked. Not just an act. Or was any of it real? I looked at her. The light from the hall spilled behind her. Her hair lifting in the wind. I gave you $3 million. I said. You think that was for the act? She held my gaze. 3 seconds. Then she looked down. Processing. When she looked up, her smile was different. Softer. Truer. Let's go. She said. It's too loud in there. We walked down the steps together. The autumn sun broke through thin clouds, and our shadows stretched side by side on the gray pavement. We weren't holding hands. We weren't talking, but walking beside her. I felt like everything took the wrong turns. The bad choices. The misplaced trust had finally realigned. The car. She stopped and looked at me. Ethan? Yeah. Your suit looks good. I looked down at the charcoal suit. Really? Yeah, she said. Wear it more often. She got in. I stood there for a second, then walked around and got in the passenger side. The sky was blue as new porcelain. We didn't celebrate that day. We went back to the 19th floor and reran the project schedules as if the chaos had been just a side note. But honestly, my mind was half elsewhere. Ivy sat across from me, pen in hand, marking up schedules. Her posture was just as upright, her focus just as sharp. But the tips of her ears were faintly red. I looked at them a moment too long. What are you looking at? She asked without looking up. Your ears. She touched her ear, and the red spread to her cheeks. She looked back down at the schedules. Her voice muffled. Look at the schedule. I smiled. She didn't look up, but the corner of her mouth didn't hide. The next morning, Vivian's case went to formal proceedings. The economic investigation team had pulled all her communications and file transfers, confirming she'd unlawfully acquired and shared commercial secrets. She faced commercial espionage and fraud charges that the sentencing wouldn't be light. Ethan was brought in that day, but his situation was more complex. The acquisition letter of intent had been notarized. The penalty clause was enforceable. He'd either pay a massive penalty or face litigation. Either way, his company would be crippled. His lawyers contacted Skyview's legal team a week later, suggesting a settlement. Don't rush. I told Ivy. Let him wait. The longer he waits, the better our terms. She hummed in agreement. Ethan, you're becoming more of a businessman. Learn from you. She laughed again before hanging up. 3 days later, the preliminary investigation was made public. Vivian was formally arrested. The news spread through her company, her family, her college circle. My phone lit up with messages from groups I hadn't seen in years. I didn't open them, but I paused on a private message from Vivian's sister. She's always been ambitious, but she's not a bad person. Could you just once go see her? She's not well. She keeps saying your name. I read it 3 times. Then I replied 3 words. Not possible. After sending, I closed the chat. From my inner pocket, I pulled out the wedding ring I'd placed on Vivian's finger 4 years ago, the one I'd taken off before I'd even left. Inside the band was engraved, Ethan Vivian 2019. I traced the letters with my thumb. Then I put the ring into an old file folder, sealed it, and locked it in the bottom drawer of the study desk. The drawer closed with a dull, final click. That afternoon, I went to the south lot. Project 2's facade was in its final stage. Workers moved in suspended baskets. Welding sparks rained down like golden droplets. I stood at the base, looking up, when Ivy arrived. She wasn't in heels. She wore black work boots with mud on them. She stood beside me, following my gaze. Project 2 delivers day after tomorrow. I know. Project 3's zoning is approved. Work starts next Monday. I know. Ethan, you've barely said anything. What's on your mind? I was quiet for a moment. Then I said, if I hadn't found that medical report, where would I be now? Ivy didn't answer. The wind swept dust and concrete scent across the site. I'd still be in that study, getting her tea, listening to her complain about the mortgage, her colleague's rich husband, how you didn't pull her up. Then she'd be carrying Ethan's child, telling me mind your own business. And I probably would have. Ivy was still quiet. The welding sparks scattered like golden dust in the fading light. But you didn't. She said. No. I didn't. We stood facing each other. The noise of the site was a world away. Between us, there was only stillness. Ivy. Yeah, when Project 3 is done, and Skyview survives these 3 months. What are your plans? She thought. I want to spin off Skyview's design division. Find someone I trust to lead it. Did you find them? She looked at me, lips curved, and said nothing. I looked at her face, and suddenly, I understood. Not with a shock, but with a quiet certainty, like light breaking through clouds. Is he reliable? I asked. Decent enough. She paused. Talks too much sometimes. I smiled. This afternoon, I'll come to your place to sign the contract. She raised an eyebrow. What contract? A contract to buy into the design division. I don't have cash up front. I'll pay in installments, out of my future salary. She looked at me for a few seconds. Then she reached over and brushed dust from my shoulder. Fine. Installments. Interest at bank rates. Capitalist. Watch your tone with a capitalist. That afternoon, we signed the letter of intent at her place. She made tea. Her tabby cat lay on the sofa, flicking its tail. I reached out to pet it. It glanced at me and moved away. Ivy laughed. It's shy. Come more often. It'll warm up, then I'll come more often. She paused, handed me the tea, and didn't reply. That night, when I went home, Vivian's sister was standing at the gate in a black down coat, holding a bag. She'd been waiting a while. Ethan. She walked over, her eyes red. She handed me the bag. Vivian asked me to give you this. She said she's gotten rid of everything else. This one you should keep. I opened the bag. Inside was a small box. I opened the box. A photo of Vivian and me at graduation, both of us in caps and gowns, under the old locust tree at the campus gate. Laughing. On the back, a line. Those years were real. I stood there for a long time. The night wind rustled plastic bags. Vivian's sister sighed and walked away. I looked at the photo. She was laughing with both eyes curved. The same person, Years later, had smiled with a different tilt. I put the photo back in the box and closed the lid. Those years were real. And the years after were real too. All jumbled together, forming the longest and most painful stretch of my life. But now they were sealed in this box, with that ring in the locked drawer. I took the box upstairs. When I turned on the lights, the apartment felt empty. I walked to the study window and looked out at the city. My phone buzzed. Ivy had sent one line. The cat sat on the sofa for a while tonight. It's waiting for your next visit. I looked at my reflection in the glass. The corner of my mouth was curved. I typed, tell it I'll be there next week. Project 3 was completed on a winter day, under the first snow of the season. A thin layer covered the new glass facade, reflecting the pale sky like a quiet mirror. I stood at the base of the building for a long time. 2 months ago, it had been just a skeleton. Exposed rebar, rusted scaffolding, weeds growing from the foundation. Now it stood, clean and upright, gleaming under the gray sky. Ivy came up behind me and handed me a hot coffee. My fingers brushed hers. Cold. She hadn't worn gloves. Cold hands. I said, forgot. She tucked her hands into her jacket pockets and stood beside me. Looking up, the site was nearly empty. Most workers had left after the afternoon inspection. Feels like a dream. She said, what part? All of it. 3 months ago, I thought Skyview was finished. Now we have 3 completed buildings. My dad's blood pressure is down. The board looks at me like, what's next? And she turned to me. And there's an architect who won't leave. Says he's an investor, but hasn't taken a cent. I'm not staying. I said, I'm doing my duty. Fine. Your duty? She smiled and turned back to the building. Snow settled on her hair, tiny white dots like scattered salt. I looked at her profile. The winter light softened her sharp edges. I thought back to when we first met. Freshman year. At the club fair. She stood behind a table, handing out flyers. Short hair, a cold face. Everyone said she was unapproachable, but I'd seen her take the leftover flyers and straighten their corners before putting them in her bag. Someone who straightens flyer corners, if they're not truly cold. Ivy. Yeah. About that thing you wanted to tell me. Can you tell me now? She turned to look at me. Snow fell in the space between us. Her expression shifted. From casual to serious. With a hint of nervousness, she set her coffee down on a nearby stand and faced me fully. Ethan, you know why I spun off the design division? Because you need someone to lead it. Yes, she said, but I'd already decided who that someone was. I looked at her. From the night you came to Skyview to help me change that password, that I'd already decided. Her voice was steady, deliberate. I wanted you to run the design division because I trust you with the company. She paused. That's true for business. It's also true in other ways. A snowflake landed on her lashes. She blinked. It melted into a tiny droplet. She brushed her eye, lightly, like she was just wiping dust. Ivy. Yes. That night you had 2 eggs in your noodle soup. I already knew. She looked at me, lips parting in surprise. Then relief. She smiled. A smile of mutual understanding. Then why didn't you say something sooner? She asked. You have more presence than I do. It made more sense for you to go first. She laughed. A real laugh that echoed in the winter air and was carried away by the wind. She raised a hand, swatting my arm. Ethan, you're insufferable. I know. So did I met her eyes. If you trust me with your company, would you trust me with the rest? She stood there, the site light casting a warm orange glow in the dusk. Her face was half lit. Soft. We'll see how you do, she said. How long? Who knows? She turned toward the parking lot, waving without looking back. Come on. No noodles tonight. I'm buying you a real dinner. I watched her for a moment, then followed. The snow fell thin, leaving 2 sets of footprints side by side. That night, we had hot pot. Ivy ordered the spiciest broth, and halfway through she was wiping her nose. I passed her a napkin. She snatched it and said, don't look at me. I turned to the window. The glass reflected her flushed face and swollen lips. She couldn't handle the spice, but she insisted. Winter needs hot pot, she said. And hot pot needs spice. She looked nothing like the polished executive I'd met 3 months ago. The mask was gone. Looking at something? She asked. Looking at you. I'm not crying. Then why are you wiping your nose, Ethan? Are you tired of living? I laughed and put a slice of tripe in her bowl. The steam rose between us, leaving winter outside. The verdict on Vivian came half a month later. Commercial espionage and fraud, with cooperation and good behavior. She got 3 years. I was in Ivy's living room, drawing plans. When I saw the news, the tabby cat no longer avoided me. It sprawled next to my blueprints, tail brushing my wrist. Ivy came out with tea and saw me on my phone. 3 years. I said. She set the tea down. 3 years from now. She'll be 35. Will you wait for her? I looked at her. Will you? Then neither will I. She said it lightly. Then bent to pet the cat. It purred under her hand. I went back to my drawing, but the cat's tail kept nudging my pencil. What's her name? I asked. Vivian. I paused and looked up. You gave the cat your own name. What? I can't be narcissistic. Does she respond when you call her? Ivy called Vivian. The cat didn't even move its ears. She sighed. No. So I'm the only one who calls her that. She doesn't accept it. I picked up the cat and set it on my lap. It settled happily, tail tucked, and started purring. Ivy stared. She was afraid of you the first time. It's my charm. It's your steady hands. She likes the comfort, meaning my professional competence. She rolled her eyes. But halfway through, it turned into a laugh. She sank into the sofa. Warm in the lamplight, she looked so different from the woman who'd always sat upright, never relaxing. Ethan, she said. Yeah. Finish your drawing and come sit. Don't leave me here alone. One more line. Now that I looked at her, then at the half-drawn line, I put the pencil down, moved the cat carefully, and sat down beside her. She turned and leaned against my shoulder, her hair brushing my neck, smelling faintly of fruit and flowers. You smell like the construction site, she said. Spent the whole day there. I'll shower tomorrow. Come back tomorrow. Are my drawings done? No, then I'll come. I looked down at her, eyes closed, lashes making fine shadows in the light. Her breathing slowed. I put my arm around her and pulled her closer. She nestled deeper without opening her eyes. The snow fell outside. The living room was warm. The cat slept. The blueprints were on the table. The pencil set aside. Ivy, I said softly, next spring. I'll handle the landscaping on building 3. The equity structure for the design division is ready. I'll show you next week. She squeezed my arm without opening her eyes. Stop talking. Quiet. I stopped. Snow fell in silence. And we sat together. 3 months ago. When I found that medical report, I thought I'd hit a dead end. But there was a crack in the wall. Someone looked through from the other side. And that was enough. I looked at her sleeping face. The small smile at her lips. She was probably dreaming of something good. The same kind of thing I dreamed about. Spring came. The 3 buildings were fully operational. Building 3 became Skyview's design division headquarters. I walked in for the final inspection. The floor was open and bright. The new skyline reflected in the glass. That MY office was the one facing Building 3. Ivy had picked it. So you can see what you built. A succulent sat on my desk. A gift from the cat, who now went by the name Vivian. Ivy had brought it one day, and it knocked the old pot off the windowsill. She'd bought a new one. You need to discipline that cat. I said I can't. It's just like you. I laughed, and put the succulent back on the sill. In the 3rd month, the design division's quarterly report came in. Better than expected. Ivy read it, raised an eyebrow, then leaned back. Well, you've earned enough for a car. What kind? Don't know. But that old thing you're driving. Last time I sat in it, the leather was cracked. Signs of age, signs of poverty. She sat on my office sofa, in a white knit, her hair in a loose bun, small pearl studs. She was softer than she'd been 6 months ago. The sharpness had mellowed. Looking at something? She asked. Looking at you. She flushed faintly, turning to the window. Flatterer, learn from Vivian. Vivian wouldn't say things like that. That's not what I meant. I meant the cat spends all its time with you. You practice in front of the mirror, and the cat learns from you. She threw a cushion at me. I caught it and leaned back, smiling. She came to the window and stood beside me, looking at the 3 shining buildings. They're up, she said. Beautiful. 2 more projects next quarter. Bigger than all these combined. She turned to me. You're taking them. I run the design division. Of course I am. You need to rest. You worked 21 days last month, out of 30. So I didn't work 9. She glared at half concern, half threat to lock my computer. I raised my hands in surrender. Fine. I'll hire more people next quarter. Spread the load. Better. She put her hand on the window ledge, fingers tapping. Then she said, next Saturday, my dad wants you to come for dinner. I blinked. Meeting the parents. Don't panic. She smiled. He's been using that tea set you gave him every day. Then I'm not panicking. Should I wear a suit? Not necessary. She paused. Just wear that gray suit. From the wedding. Meet your father. Won't that look like a business meeting? She turned to face me full on, sunlight catching her eyes. Bright. You're not coming for business, she said. You're coming for dinner. I looked at her in the spring light. Soft, warm, unarmored. She overlapped with the short-haired girl under the streetlight 10 years ago. but different. I'll come for dinner. I said, that Saturday. I wore the gray suit. I checked myself in the mirror and remembered the last time I'd worn it at Tio Vivian's wedding. Same suit, same mirror, different man. Ivy picked me up in a green dress she'd bought the year before. You look good, she said. I got in. Your mom's cooking. She's not great, but it's edible. Just don't say anything. The city was lush with spring. Magnolia blooming white. Sun filtering through the canopy. Her father was welcoming. White-haired but sharp. With a warm handshake. Ethan, Ivy talks about you all the time, Dad. She shot him a look. About the design division. The projects. Your work. He spared me the embarrassing details. At dinner. Her mother's cooking was indeed average. A little salty. Vegetables overdone. I ate 2 bowls of rice. Ivy kicked me under the table. Don't eat too much. I mouthed. It's good. Her father chuckled at our silent exchange. After dinner, he pulled me aside. He didn't say much. Just. Ivy's always been stubborn. She carries everything alone. The fact that she's sharing things with you. That's enough for me. Later, walking along the river near her house. Streetlights reflected on the water. Your dad's great. I said that he wasn't always like this. He used to be too busy. But he's changed. Have you? She stopped and turned to me. Her face was soft in the amber light. That I used to think I had to do everything alone. Trusting anyone was a risk. Everyone leaves eventually. So I built walls. And now, she looked at me. Now I think being leaned on isn't so bad. As long as the person is reliable. Am I reliable? I asked. She looked at me for a moment. Then reached out and lightly pinched my chin. Swift as a cat's paw. Then she turned and walked on. Decent enough. I caught up and walked beside her. Our shadows stretched together on the riverbank. A month later. We got married. No press. No media. No grand display. The venue was the rooftop terrace of Building 3. With a view of the southeast skyline. Fewer than 20 guests. After the ceremony. As guests departed, we stood alone on the rooftop. The city sprawled below. Lights scattered like a starry river. She leaned against my shoulder. Wind brushing her hair against my cheek. Ethan, she said suddenly. I dreamed about that night on the track field 10 years ago. What about it? I dreamed you said yes. I looked down at her. She looked back. Her eyes bright with reflected lights. The expression was the same as in college. But it was different too. The anxiety and defiance were gone. Replaced by a quiet certainty. Then dream it again. I said, this time. I choose you. She looked at me for a few seconds. Then she rose on her toes and pressed her lips to mine. The April wind carried the scent of earth and blossoms. Below, buildings 1, 2, and 3 glowed with scattered window lights. Like 3 trees full of light. She pulled back, eyes curved in a smile. Come on, let's go home. I took her hand. The city lights burned below, warm and endless. The plain bands on our ring fingers reflected the stars. Some roads take a long time to travel, but when you arrived, it's just in time.